Imagine a place where the color of your skin determines whether you are welcome. A place where, in the heart of post-apartheid South Africa, an entire town exists exclusively for white people. No black person is allowed to live there. No black person is permitted to work there. This is not a fictional dystopia, this is Orania, a whites-only enclave that openly rejects racial integration. In a nation that fought so hard to dismantle apartheid, how does such a place still exist? And what does it say about South Africa's journey toward true equality? Understanding Orania is crucial, as it raises fundamental questions about the success of South Africa's democratic transition. If racial separation still persists in such an overt form, what does it suggest about deeper, systemic racial divides? How has Orania managed to evade the global condemnation that other racially exclusive societies have faced? These are the uncomfortable questions that must be addressed. Before we dive into the disturbing reality of Orania, make sure to subscribe to the African Web for more deep dives into Africa's most pressing issues. Orania was founded in 1991 by a group of Afrikaners who sought to establish a community where they could preserve their language, culture, and identity away from black South Africans. They purchased a piece of land in the Northern Cape and built what they call a self-sustaining, independent town. Despite South Africa's transition to democracy in 1994, Orania has remained untouched by the ideals of racial integration. To this day, only white Afrikaners are allowed to live and work there. The town has its own flag, its own currency, and even its own school system, completely separate from the rest of the country. The leadership insists that this isolation is necessary to protect Afrikaner heritage. However, this justification raises serious ethical concerns, as it mirrors apartheid-era justifications for segregation. Does preserving culture inherently require exclusion of others, or is this merely a veil for institutionalized racism? Moreover, how does Orania's cultural preservation compare to other communities that have managed to maintain their heritage without racial exclusivity? These are the debates that continue to surround Orania's existence. The town operates under private ownership, and all property is collectively owned by a trust that only sells land to people who align with Orania's values. This illegal loophole allows them to continue their racially exclusive practices without technically violating South African law. While South Africa's constitution explicitly condemns racial discrimination, Orania's leaders argue that they are not violating any laws because people are not legally prevented from entering. Rather, they simply do not meet the town's strict requirements for residency. This explanation has sparked widespread debate. If other communities attempted to exclude individuals based on race, would they be afforded the same legal protections? The broader concern is whether this loophole sets a dangerous precedent. If Orania can exist under these terms, what stops other racially motivated communities from following suit? Could this lead to a resurgence of racial separatism across the country? Furthermore, how does this impact South Africa's legal system, which is meant to uphold equality and inclusion? These concerns highlight the fragility of the legal mechanisms meant to combat racial discrimination. Supporters of Orania insist that the town is about self-reliance, economic independence, and a peaceful way of life. They claim that the town's success, boasting a functioning economy, low crime rates, and strong community ties, proves the viability of their model. The town has its own construction companies, agricultural initiatives, and small businesses, all of which function without reliance on government aid. Proponents argue that Orania's policies are no different from ethnic enclaves around the world, such as Chinatown or Little Italy. They say the town is not about excluding black people, but about preserving Afrikaner identity and providing a haven for their culture. However, this comparison fails to acknowledge the racial history of South Africa. Unlike voluntary cultural enclaves, Orania is rooted in an exclusionary ideology that directly contradicts the nation's democratic ideals. Additionally, if Orania's existence is based on self-reliance, why does it require racial homogeneity to function? Could the same economic principles work in a diverse setting? These contradictions cast doubt on the sincerity of the town's supporters. Critics argue that Orania is nothing more than a modern-day apartheid project, a living contradiction to South Africa's democratic values. How can a country that prides itself on diversity and reconciliation allow such an enclave to exist? Human rights activists, government officials, and ordinary South Africans continue to condemn Orania, calling for its dismantling. Even though the town claims it is not racist, it is impossible to ignore the eerie resemblance it bears to apartheid-era segregation. While the rest of South Africa grapples with social and economic inequalities, Orania thrives in isolation, untouched by the struggles of Black South Africans. This stark contrast raises further ethical concerns. If Orania's model is truly about community and economic independence, why hasn't it attempted to integrate or support broader national efforts for development? Moreover, what message does Orania send to future generations growing up in a supposedly democratic society? Can South Africa truly move forward while a part of it remains frozen in its exclusionary past? These are the concerns that fuel the ongoing controversy. The existence of Orania highlights the persistent economic and racial divisions in South Africa, while the rest of the country struggles with inequality, poverty, and unemployment, issues disproportionately affecting Black citizens. Orania remains an insulated bubble, immune to the realities faced by millions. The question remains, if towns like Orania continue to exist, what does it mean for South Africa's vision of unity? Can true racial harmony ever be achieved when some communities deliberately choose exclusion over integration? And more importantly, what precedent does this set for future generations? Beyond Orania, what does this phenomenon reveal about South Africa's broader failure to fully integrate its society? Could other racial groups, disillusioned by inequality, begin to form their own exclusive enclaves? Additionally, how does South Africa's government balance freedom of association with the principles of equality? These are the deeper implications that Orania forces the nation to confront. Orania remains a symbol of defiance, a challenge to South Africa's progress. Some see it as a ticking time bomb, an unsustainable relic of the past that must eventually fall. Others believe it will continue to grow, emboldened by global movements advocating for racial separatism. The question is, how will South Africa respond? Will the government step in to dismantle Orania, or will it continue to exist as an unsettling reminder of the nation's divided past? Ultimately, the fate of Orania is intertwined with the country's broader struggle for true racial reconciliation. If South Africa allows it to persist, what does that say about the strength of its democracy? Conversely, if it is dismantled, will it become a rallying point for those who believe in racial separatism? These uncertainties make Orania one of the most contentious issues in modern South Africa. What are your thoughts on Orania? Should such a place be allowed to exist in a modern democracy? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the African Web for more thought-provoking content on Africa's untold stories.